Cooking the perfect steak is easy. You just need to follow a few simple steps and rules. Hello, I am Tejas Nikam, New Zealand Beef and Lamb Ambassador. Today I'm going to share a few things which I have learned from running a steakhouse. Let's start with the steaks themselves. There are a number of different steak cuts we can use. Sirloin is one of them. Sirloin steak is a great all-around crowd pleaser that balances flavor, tenderness and price. Scotch fillet is regarded by many people as the most flavorsome steak cut. For me, Scotch is the daily eating cut, It's very easy to cook. It has a right amount of the fat and the meat content. Eye fillet has the mild and subtle flavors, as well as being the tenderest steak cut. It is fairly simple to prepare. Known as the steak's lover steak, a rump might not be as tender as a Scotch or a sirloin, but it makes up for it with a deep savory flavor. Now onto the rules. Step 1. Make sure you take the steak out of the fridge at least 30 minutes before. This lets them get up to the room temperature. That means they cook evenly. Pat the meat dry and season generously with the salt. As soon as you start cooking in a hot pan, it will lose half of the salt or half of the seasoning. It's always better to leave the fat on while cooking your steak, as it adds great flavors and the moistures to the steak. Make sure you brush your steak as well as the pan with a little bit of oil. It always helps to get a good caramelization on the steaks. One of the secrets to a perfect steak is a smoking hot pan or a barbecue plate. A smoking hot pan helps to caramelize the steak perfectly. That's the kind of searing sizzle we want. If you don't hear that noise, take the meat off the pan and wait for the pan until it's nice and hot. Turn your meat once when it's nice and caramelized on the top. Every chef has a different techniques to how many times you turn your meat, but for me it's completely depend on the type of meat you're cooking. If it's a very thick steak, then probably turning few times must be the better idea. Butter is just give a richness to the steak. It gives a little bit of nutty flavor, because if you see, we are creating the foam here. So that means you are taking out the nuttiness from the butter, and that nuttiness we're gonna give it to the steak as well. It kind of give a moistness and keep the steak a little bit juicy. It is very important to not overcrowd the barbecue pan or a hot plate. If you have a few batches of the meats, then probably the best way to cook them separately or cook it in a different pots or a pan. If you overcrowd the griddle plate, you might end up stewing the meat instead of searing it. Just render out any excess fat off the back of the steak. Usually it takes 4 to 6 minutes on each side for the perfect medium rare steak. And when you touch it with the tongue, it should be springy like this. For the well-done steak, always cook 3 to 4 minutes on each side and turn the heat down and cook it further until it's nice and firm. Once your steak is ready, loosely cover with the aluminum foil, approx around 6 to 7 minutes, or depends upon the cooking time. Resting the steak, let the juices settle down and giving you the perfectly tender and a juicy steak every time. Today I'm teaching you two of my favorite sauces. One is the mushroom sauce and one is the salsa verde. I'm going to use the same pan which I cooked the eye fillet, because all the grease and the fat which comes from the eye fillet, it's gonna taste even better when you cook the sauce in the same juices. While the mushroom and onions are cooking here, we can start picking our herbs for the salsa verde. Today I'm going to use a mint and a parsley. I'm just gonna add a slice of garlic with some capers. You nicely season with the salt and pepper. Fresh lemon juice, probably half a lemon is enough. In the meantime, I'm going to quickly dice my mushrooms. I like to keep them chunky, so it gives a kind of texture to the sauce. While my onions are nice and caramelized, I'm just gonna add the mushrooms and cook them further for 2 to 4 minutes. So mushrooms are already cooked. It's just time to add some cream. Season your sauce with the salt and pepper. Yeah, and just finish it off with a nice blob of butter. Now both our sauces are done. We can add it to the steaks and serve. Or slice across the grain like this and toss it through a salad or pasta. And always look for the quality mark when you're buying New Zealand beef and lamb. It is your assurance that it is a tender steak and the best that we have to offer. If you like this video, hit over to the recipe.co.nz for more like it.